Good morning. How you start your day sets the tone for everything that follows. Words have power. They shape your thoughts, your actions, and ultimately your destiny. What if I told you that speaking just 12 truths every morning could transform your life? Not just for a day, but for a lifetime. Let's declare them together. Words are not merely sounds or symbols. They are the architects of our reality. Every morning, when you open your mouth to speak, you are not just communicating, you are creating. The phrases you repeat, the declarations you make, and even the casual words you let slip are all shaping your day, your mindset, and ultimately your destiny. This is not just motivational rhetoric. It is a principle deeply rooted in psychology, spirituality, and even neuroscience. When you say, "I am blessed," your brain begins to search for evidence to support that statement. When you declare, "I have the strength to overcome," your nervous system aligns with that belief, preparing you to face challenges with resilience. Conversely, when you mutter, "This day is going to be terrible," you set yourself up for failure before the day even begins. The power of spoken words has been acknowledged across cultures and traditions for centuries. Ancient scriptures, from the Bible to Eastern philosophies, emphasize the creative force of language. Proverbs 18:21 states, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue," suggesting that words can either build up or tear down. Modern science echoes this wisdom. Studies in neuroplasticity reveal that repetitive affirmations can rewire the brain, strengthening neural pathways associated with positive thinking and self-efficacy. When you consistently speak truths like "I am capable" or "I am walking in favor," you are not just encouraging yourself, you are reprogramming your subconscious to align with those truths. Consider how negative self-talk operates. If you wake up and immediately think, "I'm so tired, I can't handle today," your body responds by amplifying fatigue and stress. Your muscles tense, your energy dips, and your focus scatters. On the other hand, when you declare, "I am energized and ready for this day," your physiology adjusts accordingly. Cortisol levels may decrease, endorphins can rise, and your posture might even improve. This isn't magic, it's the mind-body connection at work. Your words act as commands to your entire being, instructing it how to show up in the world. Beyond the individual level, spoken words also shape your environment. Have you ever noticed how one person's negativity can drain a room, while another's optimism lifts everyone around them? Your words don't just affect you, they influence your relationships, your work, and even the opportunities that come your way. When you speak faith and courage, you attract people who resonate with that energy. When you vocalize gratitude, you train your mind to spot blessings rather than lack. This is why the practice of morning declarations is so transformative. You are setting a frequency for your day, broadcasting to the universe and your own subconscious what you expect to receive. But there's a catch. Words alone are not enough. They must be spoken with conviction and backed by action. Repeating "I am successful" while avoiding hard work or growth opportunities is empty. True transformation happens when your declarations align with your effort. For example, saying "I am healthy" should be paired with choices that honor your body, nutritious food, movement, and rest. The words prime your mindset, and the actions solidify the results. This synergy between speech and behavior is where real change occurs. Skeptics might argue that positive affirmations are just wishful thinking, but the evidence suggests otherwise. Athletes, CEOs, and high performers across fields use visualization and verbal affirmations to enhance their performance. A basketball player who repeatedly says, "I never miss a free throw," is reinforcing muscle memory and mental clarity. A student who affirms, "I am prepared and confident" before an exam is reducing anxiety and improving recall. The words create a mental blueprint, and the body follows. There's also a spiritual dimension to this principle. Many faith traditions teach that speaking God's promises or universal truths activates their power in your life. For instance, saying, "I am more than a conqueror," isn't just self-pep talk, it's claiming a biblical truth, Romans 8:37 as your reality. This practice bridges the gap between the unseen, faith, and the seen. It's not about denying challenges, but about affirming a higher truth over those challenges. When you declare, I am walking in divine favor, you are acknowledging that something greater than your circumstances is at work. Practical application is key. Start small. Choose 2-3 truths to speak aloud every morning. Look in the mirror and say them with authority. Write them on sticky notes or set phone reminders. Over time, these words will sink into your subconscious, replacing limiting beliefs with empowering ones. For example, if you've always struggled with self-doubt, replacing I'm not good enough with I am equipped for every challenge can dismantle years of negative conditioning. The transformation won't happen overnight, but it will happen. Words are seeds. When you plant them consistently in the soil of your mind, they will grow into the reality you harvest. So pay attention to what you say, not just in your morning ritual, but all day. Correct negative talk immediately. If you catch yourself saying, I always mess up, counter it with I learn and grow from every experience. This isn't denial, it's redirecting your narrative toward growth. Ultimately, speaking truth every morning is about taking ownership of your life. You are no longer a passive observer of your circumstances, but an active participant in shaping them. Your words are your tools. Use them wisely and watch your world transform. Every morning presents a blank canvas, a fresh opportunity to paint your day with purpose, gratitude, and intentionality. The simple act of waking up is itself a gift that millions didn't receive today, making how you choose to approach the morning one of the most consequential decisions you'll make. Starting with gratitude isn't just a nice suggestion, it's a neurological reset button that shifts your entire perspective from lack to abundance. When you open your eyes and immediately think, thank you for this new day, you're activating different neural pathways than if you groaned and hit snooze. This mental shift might seem small, but its cumulative effect over weeks, months, and years is nothing short of transformative. Gratitude works because it forces your brain to scan for positives rather than defaults to negatives. A tendency psychologists call our negativity bias. Our ancestors survived by noticing threats, but in modern life, this wiring often leaves us stressed about problems that haven't even happened. A morning gratitude practice counteracts this primal instinct. When you say today is a gift and list 3 things you're thankful for, a bed, breath in your lungs, opportunities ahead, you're essentially reprogramming your brain's filter. Research from UC Davis shows people who practice daily gratitude have lower cortisol levels, improved sleep, and even reduced inflammation markers. Your morning words don't just affect your mood, they influence your biology. But gratitude alone isn't enough. It must be paired with purpose to become truly transformative. The statement, I will make the most of this day, is a commitment that separates those who drift through life from those who design. Consider 2 people with identical circumstances. One wakes up thinking, another boring day, while the other declares, I'm going to create something meaningful today. Their identical days will unfold completely differently because their framing creates self-fulfilling prophecy. Purpose functions like a magnetic force. It attracts opportunities your passive self would overlook. When you start your morning affirming, I am here for a reason, your subconscious begins spotting that reason everywhere, in a chance conversation that becomes a business opportunity, in a problem you're uniquely equipped to solve, or in a moment of connection that becomes a cherished memory. The mechanics behind this phenomenon involve what psychologists call selective attention. Your brain filters reality based on what you tell it matters. Harvard researchers demonstrated this with the famous invisible gorilla experiment, where viewers counting basketball passes missed a person in a gorilla suit walking through the scene. Similarly, when you don't declare a purpose each morning, you'll miss the gorillas of opportunity all around you. A musician who affirms, today I'll find inspiration, notices melodies in street noise. An entrepreneur who states, I'll solve one key problem today, sees solutions in casual remarks. Your morning declarations set your mental search parameters for the day. This practice becomes especially powerful when facing adversity. Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, observed that those who survived concentration camps often shared one trait: they held on to a sense of purpose. His famous quote, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how," explains why morning purpose statements matter. When you preemptively declare, no matter what happens, I'll find meaning today, you're building psychological resilience. Bad traffic becomes thinking time. A work setback becomes a learning opportunity. Even grief can coexist with gratitude when you've trained your mind to hold both. Practical implementation matters more than theory. The most effective morning purpose statements share 3 traits. They're personal, present tense, and actionable. Compare life is good someday with today. I will use my creativity to help one person. The latter activates your agency. Neuroscience shows that when you phrase intentions in the present tense with active verbs, your brain processes them as real experiences, not distant fantasies. MRI scans reveal that vividly imagined actions fire the same neural pathways as physically performing them. This means your morning words, when properly constructed, are literally rehearsals for the day ahead. The ripple effects of this practice extend beyond the individual. When you start your day grounded in gratitude and directed by purpose, you become a different person to interact with. Colleagues notice your solutions-focused language. Your family feels your presence rather than your distraction. Even strangers respond to the subtle confidence of someone who knows why they're awake that day. This isn't mystical thinking. It's the well-documented likelihood principle in social psychology. People rise or fall to the expectations you project through words and behavior. Modern life constantly tries to hijack our attention with notifications, to-do lists, and others' agendas. Without a morning declaration of purpose, we become reactionary, answering emails before we've asked what matters, scrolling before we've considered our priorities. The ancient Stoics practiced morning meditations, not as passive reflection, but as active self-programming. Marcus Aurelius would ask himself at dawn, what virtue will I strengthen today? This proactive approach contrasts sharply with how most people now start their days, reaching for phones that immediately immerse them in others' priorities. Skeptics might argue that affirmations are naive in the face of real problems. How does saying today is a gift help someone facing illness or job loss? But research on trauma survivors reveals that those who maintain gratitude and purpose recover faster. A study of veterans with PTSD showed that writing down 3 things they were grateful for each morning reduced symptoms more effectively than some medications. Purpose doesn't deny pain, it gives you a compass to navigate through. A cancer patient saying, "Today, I'll find one moment of joy," isn't denying their struggle, they're ensuring the disease doesn't steal everything. The cumulative effect of this practice creates what psychologists call an upward spiral. One morning of gratitude and purpose leads to slightly better choices, which create slightly better outcomes, which reinforce the practice. Over time, the gap between who you were and who you become widens exponentially. People will call you lucky without seeing the hundreds of mornings you showed up for yourself before the luck appeared. They won't witness the private moments you spoke purpose into existence before it materialized. Ultimately, starting your day with gratitude and purpose isn't about positive thinking, it's about accurate thinking. The truth is that today actually is a gift you didn't earn or deserve. The truth is you really do have unique contributions to make. The tragedy isn't failing to achieve some impossible standard, it's sleepwalking through days without ever realizing their potential. When you anchor each morning in these truths, you don't just have better days, you begin living a better life. The sun rises the same for everyone, but those who meet it with gratitude and purpose receive more of its light. Fear is perhaps the most universal human experience, an ancient survival mechanism hardwired into our nervous systems that once protected us from physical threats, but now often torments us with imagined catastrophe. The moment we wake, this primal force begins whispering its warnings. What if you fail? Remember how embarrassed you were last time? They'll probably reject you. These mental scripts play automatically unless we consciously rewrite them. The declaration "fear has no power here" isn't denial of life's real risks. It's a revolutionary act of reclaiming authority over your own mind. Neuroscience reveals that fear primarily lives in 2 brain regions: the amygdala, our emotional alarm system, and the prefrontal cortex, where we anticipate future scenarios. When you vocalize, "I release fear and walk in faith," you're essentially activating your prefrontal cortex's higher reasoning to override amygdala hijackings. This isn't positive thinking, it's strategic brain training. The physiological impact of fear manifests in measurable ways: increased cortisol, restricted blood flow to creative centers, tightened muscles preparing for fight or flight, Remarkably, studies show that verbalizing courage statements can begin reversing these effects within minutes. When Navy SEAL candidates practice stress inoculation training, they don't eliminate fear. They develop what psychologists call fear tolerance through deliberate self-talk. Their mantras like, "I've prepared for this," or "This pain is temporary," function similarly to the morning declaration, "I have strength for anything because God is with me." Both practices create cognitive speed bumps that interrupt fear's momentum, giving rational thought time to respond rather than react. Faith operates as fear's perfect counterbalance, not through magical thinking, but through its orientation toward possibility. Where fear says, "Avoid," faith asks, "What could be built?" Where fear insists, "Protect yourself at all costs," faith proposes, "The risk is worth the potential reward." This explains why people who begin their day with faith declarations consistently demonstrate higher resilience. A Harvard study tracking professionals during economic downturns found that those with morning rituals affirming their capabilities, similar to "I have strength for anything," were 43% more likely to spot opportunities amidst crises than peers who didn't practice intentional self-talk. Their brains literally process the same information differently because of pre-established cognitive frameworks. The phrase "because God is with me" holds particular neurological power for believers. Research at Duke University's Center for Spirituality, Theology and Health reveals that when religious individuals invoke divine presence, their brains show activation patterns distinct from secular positive thinking. The combination of self-efficacy, "I have strength," with transcendent support, "God is with me," creates what researchers call a dual buffer effect against stress. This isn't about denying life's storms, but about anchoring in unshakable identity during a cancer patient declaring fear has no power here, while undergoing treatment, isn't pretending the disease doesn't exist. They're asserting that it doesn't get to define their entire existence. Practical application requires more than rote repetition. Effective fear-releasing declarations share three characteristics. They're specific: "I release fear about today's presentation," present tense, not "I will be brave," but "I am courageous now," and embodied, spoken aloud with posture reflecting confidence. Tony Robbins' priming exercises and Tim Ferriss' fear-setting practice both validate this methodology. When you stand before a mirror each morning declaring "fear has no power here," while maintaining strong posture and steady eye contact, you're engaging multiple neural pathways to reinforce the message. The verbal component engages auditory processing. The visual feedback of seeing yourself speak strengthens self-association, and the physical posture triggers confidence, neurochemical. This practice gains urgency in our anxiety-prone era. The American Psychological Association reports that 75% of adults experience moderate to high stress levels weekly, with most anxiety peaking within the first hour of waking. Social media comparison, economic instability, and global uncertainty have created what psychologists call ambient fear, a low-grade perpetual unease. Morning declarations serve as psychological hygiene against this pollution of peace. Just as brushing teeth removes overnight bacterial buildup, speaking faith removes accumulated mental toxins. Historical figures, from Eleanor Roosevelt, "Do one thing every day that scares you," to Martin Luther King Jr. Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. Instinctively understood this principle long before neuroscience confirmed it. The spiritual dimension adds layers to this practice. In Judeo-Christian tradition, the command "fear not" appears 365 times, a daily reminder encoded in Scripture. When David declares, "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." Psalm 23:4, he models fear release as an act of will, "I will" rather than emotion. This aligns perfectly with modern cognitive behavioral therapy techniques that identify thoughts as the starting point for emotional regulation. The morning declaration, "I release fear and walk in faith," operates similarly. It's not waiting until you feel courageous to speak, but speaking courage into existence until your feelings align. Skeptics might argue this oversimplifies complex phobias or trauma responses, but therapeutic practices confirm the opposite. Exposure therapy for PTSD patients often begins with verbalizing safety statements. Anxiety disorder treatments increasingly incorporate power phrases. Patients can deploy during panic attacks. The morning declaration ritual serves as preventative mental health care, building cognitive resilience before crises strike. Like fire drills preparing people for real emergencies, these daily faith affirmations create neural pathways accessible when sudden fear arises. The cumulative effect transforms one's relationship with fear itself. Rather than viewing it as an enemy to eliminate, practitioners begin seeing fear as a misguided protector. An overzealous security system that needs resetting, not obliterating. This nuanced understanding prevents spiritual bypassing, using faith to avoid legitimate emotion. The declaration, "Fear has no power here," isn't about suppressing nervousness before a job interview. It's about preventing that nervousness from vetoing your potential. Ultimately, this keynote recognizes fear's presence while denying its authority. The daily declaration is both sword and shield, severing fear's connection to your decisions while protecting your God-given potential. As these words sink from conscious repetition into subconscious belief, they change how you interpret physical sensations. Butterflies become excitement rather than dread. How you process setbacks, temporary rather than permanent. And how you assess opportunities, worth exploring rather than avoiding. The morning ritual becomes less about convincing yourself of something new and more about reminding yourself of what was true all along, that fear makes a terrible life compass, but faith makes an extraordinary one. The concept of divine favor carries transformative power when consciously acknowledged and declared each morning. This isn't about wishful thinking or prosperity theology, but rather about recognizing an invisible current of grace that flows through daily life when we become attuned to its presence. The declaration, "I am surrounded by favor and opportunities," fundamentally alters perception, training the mind to spot openings where others see obstacles. Cognitive science confirms that what we expect to see largely determines what we actually perceive, a principle called selective attention. When two people walk through the same environment, the one who begins their day expecting favor will notice the serendipitous meeting, the timely information, the unexpected provision that the other overlooks. This neural predisposition forms the basis of what spiritual traditions have called walking in favor for centuries. Favor operates differently from luck because it implies intentionality, not random chance, but purposeful alignment. The ancient Hebrew word chin, favor, carries connotations of graceful bending, as when a superior leans toward someone with kindness. This imagery suggests favor involves relational dynamics, both divine and human, that create advantageous connections. When you vocalize, "I am surrounded by favor" each morning, you're not magically attracting good fortune so much as positioning yourself to recognize and receive the goodness already flowing toward you. Psychological studies on luck reveal that self-identified lucky people share common traits. They notice chance opportunities, trust their intuition, expect good fortune, and reframe setbacks positively. These are precisely the mental frameworks cultivated by morning favor declaration. The physiological impact of this practice manifests in reduced anxiety and enhanced creativity. MRI scans show that when people operate from a mindset of abundance rather than scarcity, their brains demonstrate increased activity in the prefrontal cortex, the region associated with problem solving and higher reasoning. This explains why those who consistently affirm divine favor often demonstrate remarkable resourcefulness. They're not necessarily smarter or more talented, but their brains literally function differently because they've disarmed the fear centers that hijack cognitive capacity. A sales professional who declares favor each morning will approach rejections as redirections rather than personal failures, maintaining motivation where others grow discouraged. An artist expecting favor will perceive inspiration in mundane moments that others filter out as unimportant. Favor declarations also reshape social interactions through what sociologists call reciprocal responsiveness. When you carry an aura of expecting good from others, people unconsciously rise to meet that expectation. The Pygmalion effect, where high expectations lead to improved performance, operates here. Teachers who believe in students draw out higher achievement. Leaders who express confidence in teams inspire greater productivity. Similarly, when you declare yourself a person of favor, you emit subtle cues through body language, tone, and attentiveness that invite favorable responses. This isn't manipulation, but the natural consequence of operating from secure expectation rather than desperate grasp. The spiritual dimension adds profound depth to this practice. Biblical narratives repeatedly show ordinary individuals accomplishing extraordinary feats through divine favor. Joseph in prison, Ruth in a foreign field, David before Goliath. These accounts emphasize that favor often appears precisely in challenging circumstances, not as their absence. This explains why morning favor declarations prove most powerful when coupled with faith. They anchor the soul not in circumstantial evidence, but in transcendent reality. When Daniel faced the lion's den, his lifelong habit of prayer, a form of favor consciousness, enabled him to perceive divine presence where others would see only mortal danger. Modern believers walking through financial crises, health battles, or relational fractures access similar strength through daily affirmations of being surrounded by favor. Practical application requires specificity to avoid vague mysticism. Effective favor declarations name concrete areas. Divine favor opens doors for my business today. Favor gives me wisdom in parenting decisions, or I attract favor in unexpected relationships. This precision focuses the mind's reticular activating system, the brain's filtering mechanism, to notice relevant opportunities. A job seeker declaring favor regarding employment will spot networking chances in casual conversation. A single parent affirming favor over finances may suddenly recall forgotten resources or receive timely help. The principle operates like radar. You find what you're tuned to receive. Historical figures demonstrate this principle's power. Benjamin Franklin's daily question, "What good shall I do today?" positioned him to spot civic improvement opportunities. Oprah Winfrey's habit of expecting luck to prepare meeting opportunity reflects favor consciousness. These successful individuals didn't deny hardships, but developed mental frameworks to transcend them. Their morning rituals created cognitive structures that transformed random events into meaningful sequences, the essence of recognizing favor. Skeptics might dismiss this as confirmation bias, but neuroscience validates its transformative potential. Brain plasticity research confirms that consistent thought patterns physically reshape neural networks. When you daily declare favor, you're literally rewiring your brain to process information differently. Two people receiving the same rejection letter may interpret it completely differently. One as confirmation of inadequacy, the other as divine redirection towards something better. The external event remains identical. The internal framing determines whether it becomes a stumbling block or stepping stone. The cumulative effect of this practice creates what psychologists call an upward spiral. One morning of declaring favor leads to slightly better expectations, which create marginally improved interactions, which generate small successes, reinforcing the original declaration. Over months and years, the gap between those who expect favor and those who don't widens exponentially. They inhabit the same world but experience it fundamentally differently. One is a place of scarcity and struggle, the other is a realm of provision and possibility. Ultimately, declaring "I am surrounded by favor and opportunities" each morning isn't about denying life's challenges, but about facing them with different equipment. It's the difference between entering a dark room, fearing what might lurk unseen, versus entering that same space, holding a light that reveals resources and pathways. The darkness hasn't changed your capacity to navigate it. This daily declaration becomes less about convincing yourself of something new and more about remembering what was true all along, that grace goes before you, that provision exists for every legitimate mean, that the universe operates not just on physical laws, but on mysterious currents of divine kindness waiting to be recognized and received. The expectation of miracles fundamentally alters how we perceive and interact with the world around us. This isn't about passive wish fulfillment or magical thinking, but rather about cultivating a mindset that recognizes extraordinary possibilities within ordinary circumstances. When we declare "I expect miracles because I serve a miracle-working God," we're engaging in an ancient practice that combines spiritual awareness with practical readiness. Neuroscience reveals that expectation literally changes how our brains process information, what scientists call predictive coding. Our minds constantly make predictions about what we'll experience, and these predictions shape what we actually notice and remember. The person who wakes up expecting miracles will interpret events differently than someone anticipating another mundane day. A sudden phone call becomes a divine appointment rather than an interruption. A chance meeting transforms into a strategic connection rather than a random encounter. This mental framework doesn't create miracles ex nihilo, but it positions us to recognize and cooperate with them when they appear. Miracles operate at the intersection of the improbable and the meaningful. Probability theory shows that statistically unlikely events occur constantly. What makes them miraculous is their timely relevance to human need and purpose. The morning declaration of expecting miracles trains our minds to watch for these meaningful improbabilities rather than dismissing them as coincidences. Research on serendipity demonstrates that people who notice and act on fortunate accidents share common traits. They maintain alert curiosity, trust their intuition, and believe in benevolent possibilities. These are precisely the qualities cultivated by daily affirming miracle expectancy. A doctor expecting miracles may try one more treatment when others would give up. An entrepreneur anticipating divine breakthroughs persists through rejections that would discourage others. Their expectations don't guarantee outcomes, but they sustain the perseverance and creativity, often required for breakthroughs to manifest. The physiological impact of miracle expectancy manifests in reduced stress responses and enhanced problem-solving capacities. Studies at Harvard Medical School found that individuals maintaining hopeful expectations show different brain activation patterns when facing challenges, increased activity in the anterior cingulate cortex, associated with cognitive flexibility, and decreased amygdala reactivity, linked to fear responses. This explains why those who consistently declare miracle expectations often demonstrate remarkable resilience. They're not immune to difficulties, but their brains process them differently, remaining open to unconventional solutions. A parent praying for a prodigal child while declaring "I expect miracles" maintains both boundaries and hope, where others might descend into either enabling or despair. Their brain stays primed to recognize subtle changes others might miss. The unexpected phone call, the shift in tone, the small step forward. Miracle declarations also create what psychologists call goal-directed attentional bias. Our brains are prediction machines that allocate attention based on what we believe matters. When you daily affirm miracle expectancy, you unconsciously begin scanning your environment for evidence to support this belief. Like a detective noticing clues others overlook, you start seeing potential breakthroughs where others see dead ends. This explains the paradoxical phenomenon where multiple people can experience the same event, a job loss, a health diagnosis, a financial setback, and interpret it completely differently based on their foundational expectations. The miracle expectant person asks, "What is God preparing me for?" While the despairing individual concludes, "This proves nothing good will happen." The spiritual dimension adds profound depth to this practice. Biblical narratives consistently show miracles occurring at the intersection of divine sovereignty and human participation. Moses had to raise his staff, the priests had to step into the Jordan, Lazarus had to walk out of the tomb. The morning declaration, "I expect miracles," positions us as active participants rather than passive spectators. It's not about demanding supernatural spectacle, but about maintaining readiness to cooperate with divine movement. This explains why long-term practitioners of miracle expectancy often develop what might be called spiritual discernment, the ability to sense when to act and when to wait, when to speak and when to listen. Their daily declarations have trained them in a kind of sacred attentiveness. Practical application requires balancing expectancy with wisdom. Effective miracle declarations avoid both presumption, "God must heal me today," and vagueness, "something good might happen." Instead, they combine specific faith with surrendered trust. "I expect wisdom for this difficult decision," "I anticipate divine connections in this new season," or "I trust for creative solutions to this problem." This precision focuses the mind's reticular activating system while leaving room for unexpected answers. A business leader declaring miracles might suddenly recognize an unconventional solution during their morning job. A student expecting divine help may recall studied material with unusual clarity during an exam. The miracles often come through natural means, just at the right time, in the perfect way. Historical figures demonstrate this principle's power. George Washington Carver expected the Creator to reveal peanut applications and discovered hundreds. Thomas Edison maintained relentless expectancy for solutions amidst thousands of failed experiments. These innovators didn't view their breakthroughs as random accidents, but as the fruit of persistent, expectant inquiry. Their morning mindset, whether framed in religious or secular terms, created cognitive frameworks that transformed obstacles into opportunity. Modern miracle expectancy operates similarly, just with conscious spiritual intentionality. Skeptics might dismiss this as selective perception, but quantum physics increasingly suggests our expectations influence observable reality. The famous double-slit experiment demonstrates that subatomic particles behave differently when observed, implying consciousness affects material reality at fundamental levels. While this doesn't equate to creating reality with our thoughts, it does suggest our expectations may influence what possibilities manifest from the quantum field of potential. The morning miracle declaration thus becomes less about wishful thinking and more about aligning our consciousness with higher probabilities of beneficial outcomes. The cumulative effect of this practice creates what might be called a sacred feedback loop. One morning of expecting miracles leads to slightly heightened awareness, which notices small wonders, which reinforces expectancy, which attracts more noticeable intervention. Over time, the practitioner develops what theologian Karl Rahner called a heart attentive to the traces of the divine in earthly reality. They inhabit the same world as everyone else but perceive it as more alive with possibility, more charged with meaning, more pregnant with the potential for sudden transformation. Their daily declarations have tuned their spiritual senses to a frequency where the ordinary reveals its extraordinary dimensions. Ultimately, declaring "I expect miracles" each morning isn't about denying life's harsh realities, but about confronting them with different equipment. It's the difference between entering a dark room fearing what might lurk unseen versus entering that same space holding a light that reveals hidden doors and resources. The darkness hasn't changed, your capacity to navigate and transform it has. This daily practice becomes less about convincing yourself of something and more about remembering what was true all along, that we live in a universe where water parts, lions' mouths close, empty nets suddenly fill, and graves can't hold their captives. The miracles were always happening. The declaration simply opens our eyes to see them.